Well, thank you so much, Sid, for that warm welcome. I'd like to thank you all again for coming out to join us for Talkin' Gawk, the Ting Festival edition here at the Arts Project, the new Vibrant series. Though I'm not surprised to see such a wonderful crowd here tonight because of our extraordinary London-based graphic artist and designer, Andrew Lewis. I'd like to extend a really warm thanks to the organizers, Deanna Tamblin, Sandra DeSalvo, your wonderful team for inviting the public humanities to be part of this. I know the efforts that go into producing an event like this, and it's Herculean, and you guys have done just a wonderful job. And to be in year 4, I think it's year 4, is just an extraordinary achievement. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Yes, so I'm Josh Lambier. I am the Director of the Public Humanities at Western, which is a program designed to bring the humanities disciplines at Western downtown and into greater visibility in public life. And I also do the artistic direction for a new festival here in London, which will be coming back in November, the Words, Literary and Creative Arts Festival. So stay tuned for that as well. I'm going to be hosting tonight's event. We're going to have a conversation, and then we're going to open it up at some point in time for questions. You guys are an integral part of the discussion tonight, so start cogitating your questions, insightful questions, to use Sid's words, that we can engage Andrew and challenging and admiring at the same time in terms of the questions, right? So what I found when I was researching Andrew's background, by way of some context here, I came across some remarks that he made about the experience of coming back to the City of London. Andrew said, and this is to quote, "It seems there are new people and things are moving." After being away from London for a while on the West Coast in British Columbia, Andrew also noted the improvements to the downtown. He remarked, "I'm happy to see some movement in the downtown cleaning up. I want to be a voice in this city and contribute one way or another. I'd like to see more vibrancy downtown." And has he ever been true to his word in terms of the activities that he's been doing in the galleries, in the designs that he's been doing in events such as this? It's been extraordinary to have Andrew back with us. Andrew's remarks also resonated with something that Deanna Tamblin has recently said, and I continue to quote Deanna, and I'm going to continue to quote you on this remark. Deanna noted that we're experiencing something of a renaissance in the arts in London, and I think she's right. And that renaissance has been a real driver for urban development and renewal downtown, to link it back to Andrew's remark, but also in neighborhoods in the city like the Wortley Village, the East Village, and that's just to name a couple, where arts have been an integral part of our communities. In very recent years, London has also seen the birth of 2 Comic-Cons. We have the Forest City Film Festival as a new addition, the Words, Literary and Creative Arts Festival, only recently launched. The higher ed institutions are more involved in the downtown than they've been in a long time, both Fanshawe and Western. Theater and independent theater are booming, including the activity that's happening here at the Arts Project. And most importantly for tonight's event, the Ting Festival has offered us all a unique opportunity to focus our collective attention on the past and present achievements of the comic and graphic arts, while looking ahead to a new generation of voices, some of whom will be inspired and emboldened to pursue careers or projects in the arts because of a festival like this. And Sandra was telling me that you had a group of grade 6ers in here, and I guarantee that one of those grade 6ers will have embedded in their memory the experience of being at a festival like this when they go forward. The Ting Festival has also brought our attention to the creative legacy of Sowesto, to use that term of Greg Cournot's, coined by Greg Cournot and popularized by the great dramatist, playwright, amongst many things, James Rainey. It's important that we pay attention to the history of the comic and graphic arts. So at the same time that the project of London regionalism was unfolding in the activities of Greg Cournot, Jack Chambers, Murray Favreau, Art Pratton, Ron Martin, Patterson Ewan, Tony Urquhart, James Rainey, to name a few, including Don and Bernice Vincent, and a great connection here with Charles Vincent, whose work is on display, the son of Don and Bernice. At the same time that that's happening, Merle Tingley was drawing as the editorial cartoonist for the London Free Press. And though we don't always make that connection between the vibrant art scene that emerged in the 1960s and the comic and graphic arts, as we should, the influence of Ting, as this festival bears witness to, is still felt as much for the comics community as the regionalist painters are for the visual arts. And it was around that time that our distinguished guest, Andrew Lewis, would have been getting his start in the arts world. And in fact, I think the crossover here between your experience of drawing and the local newspaper is going to dovetail as well, and we'll come back and chat about that. Before, though, I want to give a couple of remarks. I imagine many of you are familiar with Andrew's work, but let me give you a background here of Andrew in a nutshell. Andrew Lewis is an internationally recognized art director and graphic designer who has received many prestigious awards for his corporate identities, branding, packaging, poster art, and multimedia applications. If you can believe it, his portfolio includes over 800 posters and print runs of over 1 million copies around the world. And I imagine that number, since I read that, has probably increased. In the theatrical and performing arts, which will be a focus of our discussion today, he has designed posters for over 200 productions, which is a stunning accomplishment. He has worked on over 150 brands, and his past clients include such prominent companies as Canada Post, the Royal Canadian Mint, Scotiabank, Perrier, Starbucks Coffee, Converse, and Visa. His work has, yep, exactly, we've got I thought that might have been a product placement right there. His work has found its way into numerous galleries, museums, and collections across the world, including the French National Library, the permanent collection of the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., the International Poster Biennial in Mexico City, and the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. And actually, Brian Meehan was just telling me yesterday that there's an upcoming show that's going to take place at Museum London, so that's something to look forward to here as well in London. He has been a guest speaker and workshop teacher at various design conferences, poster biennials, and universities in Canada, the United States, Central and South America, Europe, and Asia. In his recent work, he has also begun to explore new forms of visual communication and fine art, including a new series of interior artworks and exterior sculptures for the Derby Manor in Vancouver, his 2016 Pop Art Canada Goose design for the Royal Canadian Mint, and his recently completed exhibition at the Westland Gallery here in London, which includes paintings, ceramics, and a table designed in honor of Winnie, his wiener dog and #1 muse. Please join me in welcoming Andrew. So to kick us off, I actually want to swing back to that opening experience of being here in London, Ontario when you were growing up, and you were a graduate of the Beal Art program, our prestigious Beal Art program. And I was wondering if you could, maybe we could get you to visit back that experience and just discuss what it was like to be a Beal Art student in London.
You're doing such a good job. I could just sit here all night and listen. Really. Beal was great. Beal was awesome. Beal was more than awesome. Because it was kind of almost like a Bauhaus. It was the Bauhaus theory of teaching, where you go in and you learn all the different bits and pieces of from textiles to pottery to etching, drawing, and they're very, very good. It had a very strict policy of education, and I thought that was great. And you'd have visiting artists always coming through, like Curnow and all those people, and it was a really nice synergy.
Mm-hmm. Now, I understand, actually, there was a moment when you did a tour of the London Free Press, and there was, I'm trying to think, I actually have the
Where are you
here.
finding this from?
I know, I feel, I said before, James Lipton, the Actors Studio, when he calls press teachers and pulls up information.
Like Martin Short doing that,
But Bill McGrath, I think, is the name of the person that you actually, and he had a Nihilist Spasm Band sticker that would have linked back to Greg.
Yes.
And this was the moment of a conversation that led to some work.
I was short English credit at Beal, so I had to take an English course, and the teacher said, just show up for the class and just write something. I went, great. So that's what all I did. And then she says, well, we're going to have a tour of the Free Press, and I went down, and I saw it exactly as you just said. And it's interesting because I came home from Beal that night, and my father said, well, there's a Bill McGrath just left a message, come down tomorrow morning with your portfolio. And I went, all right, sure. I was like 17 at the time, and I went down, and next day, and it just opened up from there.
That's amazing. So can you recall that conversation, what some of the things that you would have talked about that would have struck that note?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just talked about the fact that, at the time at Beal, I was playing in a couple of bands with Greg Curno's kids were playing, at the same time, Galen and it was neat because he knew everyone in the Spasm band, and I don't know, it was kind of an interesting instant connection. And Bill is such a great giving person as well, very patient, unlike myself.
And what were some of the projects that you would have worked on when you were at the London Free Press? You were doing design and layout.
Yeah, it was just, it was amazing because Bill, I don't know, either I conned him or fooled him. That's my whole job, by the way, is conning and fooling people. But he just gave me, he says, this was like in the fall, so he says, well, come in and do some editorial illustrations, and he gave me assignments. He said, that's due tomorrow morning, or that's due next week, and then that went on to doing covers for the fashion spreads, and it was amazing that way. Yeah, and
your work, which has that ability to merge image and typography and the layout of a page, how a page is designed, that would have all been stuff that you do as a newspaper.
Yeah, and I didn't know anything about type, and obviously then it was a whole different system of actually creating graphic design, So that was great, and the coolest thing was they gave me all the hours no one else wanted to work. So I worked right through Christmas and New Year's, and I just, anything I could do, I wanted to work there, and it was really good because it was a chance to really exercise a whole new set of skills, and it was.
It's 17. That's incredible.
Yeah,
that you were doing that. Did you ever encounter Merle Tingley?
Yeah, well, his office was right next to.
Was it really?
Yeah, and then I remember I knew his Ting. I knew everyone knew Ting, right? So, but his name spelt was, I thought it was Tingley, Mr. I call him Mr. Tingley. I thought, wow, if he ever had a name, that'd be great. Be known as Mr. Tingley.
Did you ever have the conversations?
Every afternoon I'd go in there and we would have coffee, and we talk about usually big band swing music, and because my dad was into that, and I played swing when I was young, and drums, and so we talked a lot about Glenn Miller and Gene Krupa, and he was a great guy. He was just, and he could draw really, really well. Obviously, you can tell on the wall here. Yeah. Very good draftsman, and kind of old school, but there's nothing wrong with that, I always thought his stuff was a little dated at the time, but now I look at it and I go, well, it's very, very well crafted. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever share the idea that you were drawing, and did he ever have a chance to look at your work?
Oh yeah, he did. He didn't say too much. I think he was so busy trying to come up with daily ideas, which is, that's a nightmare.
Absolutely.
It really is. Yeah.
So you're 17 years old. You're working all the hours that people don't want to work. Yep. You're accumulating a cachet of funds that you then spend on a ticket to go to the other London, England, so that you can experience that atmosphere. What was that like to go at 17? What provoked you to go to London?
Well, I don't know. I was coming home one night in February on the bus, and I don't know. It stopped at outside a travel agency, and I just walked off the bus, walked in. I said, I want to go to England. So and I because I saved every penny I made. Yeah. And I went to England. I have family there. So and then I ended up going to Paris and hanging out there, and then after that, I ended up in Scotland and come back to London and flew home after a while. And it was very exciting and terrifying, all rolled into one, being so young.
Absolutely, 17 years old. So when you're in Paris, I understand there's this moment, this epiphany moment or epiphanic moment where you went into a poster store and it had original posters from La Belle Époque, and there was this moment that you had a realization about the poster medium. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, you just did. You're doing such a good job. I just walked into this store in, I think it was on Saint Germain, and there they were, all the posters, big, that size kind of posters by Leonardo Cappaello or Jules Chouret and all these. And it was amazing. I really saw the blend of illustration, design, and typography all in one unit, And it wasn't just design, it was art, and it was this world where Beal was a fine art driven school, and there was always constant, between commercial art and what do you want to call it, and design to fine art. So there was this moment where these elements all lived together, and so that sort of really stuck in my head and sort of started the thinking, I think.
Well, and I find it fascinating too. You go to Paris and you think you're going to the galleries and you're seeing everything, but it was the poster medium. So there must have been something there that was already resonating with you, that was just
Maybe.
that moment that
Yeah,
came.
I think it's just from working at the Free Press and seeing every day how you had to integrate typography into a language so that people would, get excited by, by different fashion spreads or illustrations or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you came back and you were back to London, or you went, what happened next in terms of activating this realization that this was going to be a trajectory for you?
I just, Free Press, I finished Beal. I worked the summer in there, and then I went to Ontario College of Art in Toronto and did that for a while. And it was interesting as a revelation knowing that Beal actually was an excellent school. And very, very strong training compared to OCA at the time. Unlike, I think OCAD now is excellent again. Yeah. But every school has ebb and flow.
Yeah. One of those first projects that you would have had to work on was at the Grand Theatre here in London, Ontario. How did that connection happen? How did you make the connection to work with the Grand Theatre?
Well, there's a big gap in there. From there, I worked for a number of, I freelanced in Toronto, came back to London, worked for a number, 2 or 3 agencies. The last agency I worked for was Parson Advertising, which was located in Stratford, Ontario. We had an office in Toronto and one in New York, and it was all arts, probably about 90% arts. So, so suddenly I was doing art direction for, different theaters in the States, New York, Stratford Festival, and so there came into understanding, theater work, and I built up a good portfolio in understanding theater design and understanding working with directors and interpreting writing and how to express that in a really strong visual manner.
Yeah, one of the things I find fascinating about the poster design as well, and you can see one of the designs that you've done for Stratford here, much later though, this is one of the later designs, is the collaboration that must take place between the person who's doing the production, whether it's the artistic director, the director. How did that work? Did you have moments of challenge, or?
It's always a challenge. It's always a challenge.
That's the black box where things are made.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. You're as a designer, you're always fighting for a beautiful image or something that's going to be, design driven. And they theater. You have directors, you have marketing people. Everyone has their sort of spin on it, and they want to put their input in. And generally, if you ever work with a committee, and everyone puts an input in, and you never get a great product at the end. Now and then you get these where it comes together really, really well, and everyone's really thrilled with the final design, and actually is very strong. But there's also a lot of compromises, printed compromises, which is it's disheartening. You think here's a great idea, like visually and conceptually, intellectually, it has levels of depth, and then an artistic director will just shoot it down to its. No, we just want to show maybe a foot or a shoe or something. Okay. At that point, they just become this walking dollar sign. All right, you're going to get an invoice in 2 days. Really.
Were there any designs that someone had changed it so far that you thought, I can't work on this particular production?
Yeah.
Dollar sign?
Dollar sign. Yeah, I mean, there's some, it's political, right?
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
a political,
Absolutely.
But you do your best, and then that's where you become a professional, where you actually have to do your job as a communicator.
Absolutely.
And you say next, and hopefully the next one will be better.
Yeah. So when you worked with the Grand, you worked with the great Martha Henry.
I did.
The wonderful Martha Henry when she was the artistic director here at the Grand.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was awesome. There's 2 people in the world I think are the greatest, nicest, kindest, most everything is John Neville from Stratford Festival I work with, and Martha Henry. They were so giving and so wonderful, creative, and they let you, the word, I love this saying that Marlon Brando said, so just give me enough room to swing my cat, And they gave a lot of room to swing my cat, And Martha is wonderful. She's very creative, had really, really smart ideas, like really smart input into the theater design and posters.
Oh, that's interesting. So it wasn't the case that she completely left you alone. She had good ideas that went into the mix that gave you a good guide. And
yeah. Well, it's almost like if you're a little fire, she's like a good gallon of gasoline she just kept throwing on top of you, and it make you better.
Yeah.
And that's when you find clients that are really good that make you better, right? Bad clients don't make you better, make you worse.
Yeah.
And you just want to just get it done. But she was wonderful. She was very, very creative. Yeah.
Can you recall any of the the productions that you would have worked on? Because I think you did 45 posters.
Yeah, I did about 45. Dancing at Lunasa was my favorite because it was a very complicated piece. And there's the layers of the piece itself. And I ended up doing a very simple drawing of these women dancing around this radio and da-da-da-da. And what I loved was that when I actually saw the production, it'd be great if you had a time machine, you could see the production and then go back and do the poster, because there's so much energy and so much power in a very good production that it'd be really great to, now I know what it's going to be like, then I could do the poster. But it's terrible when you're sitting there with a script and you talk to a director and then you try to come up with an image. It's very, very hard. But that one was one where I saw the piece and it matched. It really connected the two together. And Martha she said at the time, she says, you'll never find theater as good as this in Canada. And I agree with that.
That's remarkable. One of the posters, and it's actually a slide, I don't know if Emma could probably grab it for us in one of the images, is a poster of Ambrose Small. And I mentioned this to you, this one that really resonated with me. Not on this slide. The ones that you were just on. It's a later one on there. But can you recall putting that particular poster together?
I can. I think it's on the upper left corner. I look back at some of the old stuff. I go, oh Jesus. That's the problem. But I always think, hey, Paul McCartney's made some crappy albums as well. So, but they wanted an image for the theater, and they asked me to come up with an idea, and I came up with the idea of the Ghost of the Grand. And I didn't come up with the idea, but that's the image that I wanted to project. And we did different variations of Ambrose Small, and it worked for a couple of years, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the proscenium, the iconic proscenium, is the merge into the top hat.
Or something. I don't know. I'm looking at that, whatever it was.
But the one thing that I really noticed about this too is the way in which poster design does distill essential criteria. And if you think of things that we identify with the Grand, Ambrose Small is one of those things that I immediately conjure, and that proscenium. And putting that together, it just is a really, I think, fabulous image, and one that I actually knew when I was younger.
I know you said that. Yeah, I know. It's funny how images do connect with some people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So actually, we could probably, if you have some of the posters that you might be able to just highlight for us.
We can look at some of these, There you go. Throw another one up. When I work for the Grand, every year I come up with a different approach and a different style, and because that's just who I am. I get bored quite easily in terms of style, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work as well. But I'm always been trying to push things. Very lengthy title and the image itself. I like trying to stretch people's imagination a little bit. Another one. Other posters for the Grand. This is older stuff, and it's a whole different time. Boy, oh boy. Okay, throw some more up. These are other posters for different theaters around the world. Wolf Trap in the States, Gateway Theatre, and the bottom ones were for Stanley Theatre in Vancouver. And they all have stories, and I always try and this is older stuff, but I always try and do something that's challenging,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you take on a theatrical production to do the poster, I imagine there's the research process. What does that look like? When you sit down and say, okay, I've got a new poster to design for a production, what do you do?
Well, it's a combination of, they always give you a script, they give you a synopsis, you talk to a director, you talk to an artistic director, then you talk to a marketing director, then you talk to everybody, and then you get a phone call from one of the aunts of the set designer. So, you just have to listen, right? Yeah. And it's challenging sometimes. You just want to say, just let me do my thing,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's an incredibly collaborative process in terms of You're the one that critical listening to find the notes that you want to put together to produce the image.
Yeah, I go back to the posters of Paris. Those classic posters were designed by an artist. Let's say Moulin Rouge hires Jules Charest, and he just, here's your poster, and that was that. But now there's like a whole level of people that you have to design with and for and together and fight for, and so the one-on-one is now 1-on-12. Yeah. Right.
Amazing. One of the things that I noticed too about the poster designs with productions is the fact they're signed historically. So there's an occasion, there's a location, there's a date.
Exactly.
So you're designing a poster that it's signed by history, but you're also designing for the afterlife of that poster to live on into its own autonomy as an artwork. Yeah. So you must have that in mind. Was that something when you did early designs that you had in mind, or is that something you grew into?
No, that's a scary idea. I always used to say, after the production's dead and gone, that the poster's left. It's the last thing. Everyone will then, in 10 years from now, look back at a poster design and go, wasn't that great? Or didn't that suck? Or whatever, right? Yeah. So, I don't know. You want to throw some more up? Canada Book Day, that's an older poster, but they asked me to design this image for Canada Book Day. And it was promote Canadian writers and kids in school to read Canadian books. And so that was the image I came up with. So we printed for this one 150,000 posters. For that one, I don't know, it was a huge run of bookmarks, like 8 million bookmarks. Every kid in Canada got a bookmark. And it was really, I wanted something at the time that was going to stand out in the bookshops. Like every bookshop at that time was all images photoshopped to death, and layers of Photoshop of images. And I just want to say, how is this going to stand apart from the rest of it? So I wanted something that had a kind of an old kind of woodcut look and natural and Canada, and what else is more Canadian than the goose? I
was just going to say, is that the birth of your love affair with the goose, or does this stretch even further back?
No. My dad liked Canada geese. Yeah. I don't know. He was a pilot, so he always liked anything that flew. Yeah. But he liked the Canada goose. And it's a beautiful looking bird, though everyone says it shits everywhere.
I think it's on Western University campus.
Yes.
We have just piles of poo all over campus.
I know. Yeah. That's right, yeah.
It's covered in a thin layer. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. One of the things I find interesting too is the way in which young artists now, in order to be able to make it as artists, have to be, let me use the word entrepreneurial, that have to find a way in which you can take your art, find an audience, find a client base. Was that something that was difficult for you? So that would have been probably in the 90s or the 80s, 90s that you were making it on your own, because you eventually turned yourself that into the company. Yeah. Andrew Lewis Designs.
Yeah. I mean, it was a challenge then, and it's a challenge now.
Yeah.
Oh my God! In fact, I think it's more challenging now than it was then. I don't know. Maybe I was just stupider then, but I don't know, or more naive, I should say. It's hard. It's hard to make money at art. Yeah. And this is applied arts versus fine arts, and it's very difficult to convince people to buy your work. Right now I'm also doing fine art, and it's a whole different world compared to commercial work. It's equally challenging with a different set of rules.
You have a reputation for, and I think it's a term that you use, but also clients must have used it for you, of having a kind of a therapist relationship or a psychiatrist relationship.
Where are you getting this from?
Wow. But this is a term you've used on a number of occasions. Okay. And I'm wondering how that works. How does that therapist relationship work?
I have a client in Vancouver, and I've had them for about 10 years, and they're a wonderful client, wonderful people. But the marketing person, she's a lovely lady. She just phones me up, and I just sit there. It's almost like she's on the couch, and I'm just listening to her latest woes and complaints, and we'll talk for 45 minutes to an hour, and no mention of advertising design or nothing. And it's like, well, it's good talking. We had good talking to you too. Bye bye. And it's just very weird. Yeah. But. From that, though, you do pick up a lot of nuance and a lot of information. Yeah. So when you go to do design and for them, you can really help them understand.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when it's almost the metaphor is really wonderful, because I would almost say psychoanalyst too, because you're looking for a creative unconscious. You're trying to find something that they're going to like without necessarily them stating exactly what they want.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
That has to be a tricky process.
It is, yeah, but I think as a good designer is a very inquisitive person, like a really good designer or good artist or a good creative person is always inquisitive. You put yourself on the back burner and you listen and you talk and you glean. I did a presentation, I think in Mexico, and I talked about designers were truffle pigs. You know, we're truffle pigs.
Yeah.
You know, you can't see where the truffles are underground, but the truffle pig can smell them out.
Yeah.
So we're always truffle pigging and just really finding the things that you can't see.
Yeah, and maybe actually that's a good point for the other slides on design, and just actually see how your creative unconscious works in terms of how different pieces come together.
Yeah. So these are just opera posters, you know, and just images that are strong and simple. You think about this in the street of Vancouver. It's very strong. It's going to stop you, hopefully, and look. There's not loaded up with type. It tells you the simple information. Sure. And that's what I like. I like, and I love illustration and images that are fresh and fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can throw another one. Yeah. And again, and Faust, you know. This one here, we started a production in Vancouver called We're Still Hot, the musical. So it was kind of all about menopause and women and this kind of thing. So I did the word mark, We're Still Hot musical, just simple cutout thing. And then I went to New York to Broadway, and people in Broadway wanted to market it with an image. So I designed this sort of fire extinguisher kind of thing, and then put the word mark on there. And just 2 colors and very simple. Lots of white space without filling it up, and you know, I just wanted something that's funny and you know, something that's easy to reproduce, and how that's going to cut through all their other posters you'd see in New York, you know, on the streets. There you go, and one more. The Fever, that's another theater production in Vancouver. It's a woman in Central America in a delirious state in a hotel room, and this little doll I brought back from Guadalajara, and it was on my shelf, and I was stuck for an idea, and I thought, I'll just pull it all the legs and arms apart, and you know, sort of did that, and it's a purple image, but anyway, it went pink on the poster, but yeah, where you find your images are sometimes right in front of you. Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. One of the things I noticed as well when I was looking into your work was the way in which transformations have taken place for you when you travel to international biennials. So the one that I'm thinking of is actually the genetic moment for the Xylus poster here. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came to be? I think it was an international biennale that you had attended, and you had spoken to somebody. And
yeah. I was in Colorado for the International Poster Biennial, and it was my first one I was invited to, and I thought I knew how to design posters because I was invited and my posters were included. Yeah. And within 4 minutes of walking through this gallery, I realized I didn't know how to design posters. I had no comprehension how to design a poster. So. Seeing works by Japanese designer Shigeo Fukuda to Herman Montalvo from Mexico to the best designers in Moscow, there's a nuance of good poster design that it's kind of hard to pinpoint what exactly it is, but there's an intellectual depth to it. There is a design level that is well above the average, and to do that and to understand that is you have to see it, number one, and number two is to practice it. It's easy to talk about it. So I came back and I had a commission from Xylus to do a garlic press, and it was just an ad kind of thing. So I kind of elevated it up, and this poster then was printed and then went into other biennales, and that opened all the doors. It just opened up. It was bizarre. It was just a bizarre, because after that, literally within a year or two, I was getting invites everywhere for my work, and going to biennales in Europe or Mexico and other places, and
Which I find also a really wonderful description of the way that you work, that to have that humility and humbleness to look at work and say, geez, that's phenomenal, and then to learn and to bring something back. And incorporate it into your own craft.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's humbling, I have really good friends around the world who are great designers and amazing what they do. And you go to their presentation and you sit there and you're sitting in your chair, and then by the end you're sort of slunk down going, oh God, that is so good. You know, it's just like, I'm not thinking. I'm just not thinking. So when you see that, it's humbling. And
absolutely.
And I frankly, be honest with you, I needed a lot of humbling when I was younger, and that was very successful. So.
And from that moment to a more contemporary moment, I wanted to ask you about a stunning poster, and this is actually the second slide on the other, that combines the Converse Chuck Taylor sneaker and the textile designs of Finland's Marimekko. It's such an elegant quilting, and it's just the one down from that one, Emma. An elegant quilting of the formal design patterns, there it is, and bold colors of Marimekko, and that iconic sneaker in the middle. This poster would eventually go on to win the gold medal at the 12th Annual International Poster Biennial in Mexico. The first time a Canadian designer has won that award, which is just a stunning. So to juxtapose that moment of feeling humble at the designs to becoming the one that would win the Poster Biennial, that must have been just a huge moment.
Yeah, it was a bizarre moment because I normally go every 2 years to Mexico City for the Biennial, which is in the Franz Mayer Museum, the Zocalo, and is a stunning venue, and there's like 300 almost amazing posters. But that year I didn't go. Yeah. And that night I was, I think it was my daughter's birthday, and I was, just hanging out, and then my phone went, and I saw this phone number I didn't recognize, and it was my friend Pekka Lori from Finland, who was at the Biennial, and says, you won. I said, won what? Who are you? And so that went, and then I had another phone call, and then text started coming through. Yeah. And anyway, that was bizarre. Yeah. It was bizarre. And then, so the weirdest was, I wasn't there to get the award. So the gold medal, they sent it to the Embassy of Mexico, the Canadian Embassy in Mexico City. And next thing you know, I get a phone call about 6 months later saying, well, the ambassador of Mexico is coming to Victoria. He's going to present you with the medal. Wow. What? So I went to the government legislature building, and this entourage of like 5 limos pull up, and this big group of serious people from Mexico gave me this beautiful medal, and it was the most somber, serious governmental presentation. It was just beyond bizarre, and just for a silly little poster, right? But for them, it was great. And what is bizarre is that after, there was a reception, I'm standing there talking to, Juarez, the ambassador, and he says, I like your work, and that's not a good Mexican accent. And he says, I want you to design the branding for Canada and Mexico. I went, oh, sure. Yes. I'll do anything for money, as we know, right? So. Anyway, it opened up, and then I got the branding job for Mexico and Canada. Which is stunning. And one of the things I really love about this is the fact that it really does represent that really strong relationship you have to Latin America, Central and South America. And I wonder if you can, this was something that I learned when I was researching your work, was just how important the poster medium is in Central and South America. Could you just outline? Well, I over, since I'd say 2000, my name in Mexico in particular, but now South America is huge. I'm not braggy about that, but it's true. And so I go there, I'm well known, I always interviewed by TV stations and magazines, but they have embraced the poster because I think it's a simple form of communication, right? And they are also still inquisitive about design, and they respect design, they respect poster illustration and typography and so on. And, 2 exhibitions have started. One is in Bolivia, La Paz, Bolivia, the International Poster Biennial, Bolivia. You think, Bolivia, what's there? La Paz, right? Well, La Paz is 10 million people. It's enormous. It's probably the 3rd biggest poster biennial in the world. They have their exhibition, but then they have 13 sub-exhibitions around the city, which are all international quality exhibitions, mind-blowing. Yeah. And recently, last year, I was in Quito, Ecuador for their biennial, which was phenomenal, like absolutely stunning. They had a side exhibition of Swiss posters. That was incredible. And the designer who organized that from Switzerland, who's now living in San Francisco, he came and I met him. And it was just a great experience that way. There was a side exhibition there of the Moscow's latest designers, which was mind-boggling. And you walk away from that experience going, wow, I don't know anything, you know?
That's stunning. I'm wondering too if there's certain elements of Latin American design, poster design, that you've incorporated into your work.
Oh sure. I'm not very imaginative, you know. I don't have imagination. I really don't. So I mean, colors. I mean, that's Finland, right? But there's a lot of, you know, you'd see that sort of textile coloring in markets. You know, I love textiles. I love all the crazy patterns and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Another exhibition too that you're a part of, or just recently a part of, was the exhibition that is around this poster here, the one that for the Russian Revolution that's here. So it's the 100th anniversary of the Russian Revolution exhibition, and it offers another illustration of that global reach of your work. I'm wondering if you could discuss how that came to be.
Yeah, I was the only designer in Canada invited to submit a poster for. I think there was 50 designers in the world, and so the theme was 100 years of the Russian Revolution, and so to design a poster for that. They had a public call as well, but this the main body of the exhibition. So, the Russian Revolution, right? So you think about that poster there. The idea I came up with is the fact that 100 years ago it started, and that's the fuel for the fire today, basically. You know, and just using a Bic lighter as the glue to hold that idea together. Very difficult, because you could easily rely on typical Russian revolutionary images and Rodchenko and that sort of thing, and everyone did, right? So I always like to go the opposite direction of what everyone does, right? Yeah.
Which is, and actually that's a really wonderful segue into a quote that I pulled out from Alejandro Magallanes.
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 It's the hardest Mexican name to say.
And that's you let me off the hook of mispronouncing that by
it took me years to learn it. No kidding.
He writes, Andrew Lewis is not a poster designer, he is many poster designers. The variety of his solutions are unified by the strength, quality, and clarity of their message. Each time he designs a poster, we find a brand new Andrew Lewis. I love this idea because it suggests that idea of finding new ways or new solutions. Why is that such an important element for you in terms of just thinking through your creative practice?
I don't know. I've always tried different styles and different approaches, and I always like to be challenged, and always like to push, and I always like to want to experiment.
Yeah.
I have a whole list of artists I admire. Cliche or not, and one is Picasso. He would learn a technique, and he would become the best at it, or in his mind the best at it, right? Yeah. And then he'd move on. He'd drop it and go on, and he'd start something else. He'd go into ceramics. He'd do woodcuts. He would do painting. He would do, anything. And it's all about moving forward, and leaving a big wake behind you, but not looking back and just keep going forward.
Absolutely, and I find that just terrifying. The anxiety of the freedom of thinking through something new. It reminds me of the stand-up comedian Louis C.K. who says he throws out his act and then has to reinvent, but he's forced to reinvent, to find something new, a new solution. Yeah,
I heard on CBC last night she was talking about writing books, and she quoted another writer about you finish a book and then you abandon it. And I thought that was interesting. You don't finish a book and then you move on. You abandon it, you throw it and then you go forward. And I try and do that, and it's a very exhausting process because you are reinventing yourself, because there's a lot of designers and illustrators and musicians I know that do the same thing over and over and over, and they've been doing it for 25 years, the same thing, and I go, how can you do that? But they do that.
Well, and it's very brave work, and maybe Emma, you could go to the 12th side. I actually wanted to show everybody some of the work that you've been doing recently that moves in other areas than the poster. The stamp, maybe you could talk about some of these images here.
Yeah, okay. Well, I was commissioned by Canada Post to design a stamp, and this is for the Community Foundation, which is every stamp sold, they add 10 cents to it, and that money goes to supporting young kids across Canada and young people. So, the idea of this little bird is that, we're trying to teach how kids to fly, and it's cliche, but I designed that stamp looking at all the other stamps that Canada Post had.
Okay.
If you go into an outlet and look at all the stamps that are available, I wanted my stamp to stand out. I mean, that's just, again, it's a design thing, but I also wanted something that's very different, and it's something that was done by hand, and something that's very simple. And so that was one of the solutions for it, and they liked it. So, and now I'm designing this year's stamp for this foundation as well.
Oh, wonderful.
And I can't show you that, but.
Yeah, well, we'll look forward to it. Maybe the next slide. This is a surprise. Andrew doesn't know what I've got up here. So this is for the Dairy Manor, I think it is, in Vancouver?
Yeah, it's like a $40-odd million building, and they commissioned me to design all the artwork to go interior, exterior, banners, marketing, advertising, fine art, big, huge prints, wall graphics. The art had to be vector so that they can cut it out of steel, metal, wood.
Oh, wow.
Desks are being covered with the patterns of these images. Yeah, it's a huge, huge undertaking.
That's phenomenal. So these images these would be used for interior design?
Yeah, well, these are banners that will hang out on the street.
Oh, I see.
And then all these images here will be art that will hang on walls. They'll be, in the bistro, big pieces. And then all those little bits and pieces then can be cut out of metal and wood and all sorts of stuff.
That's fantastic. And the next slide. So here's your Canada Goose pop art coin.
Yeah. So the Mint commissioned me to design a coin, and working with a Mint is a very interesting process. It can go well and it can go not so well, really, truly. And so the black and white art on the right was the final design after dozens of different ideas. But then I had to work with the engraving department, and they would send me like dozens of different finishes. We like this, we like that, we like that. So then on the left, I had to sort of specify, okay, let's use a matte finish. Let's raise these dots. Let's push this back. Let's emboss, just figuring out. And that took a long time to do. Yeah. But it was a really interesting learning curve.
Yeah, and it's a gorgeous coin. It's a $30 coin. Is that the denomination of it?
What, I think so.
Yeah.
Yes. But it doesn't cost $30.
No, it costs a lot more. Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Yeah.
And the next slide, Emma.
Yeah. So some of the reject ideas from the geese, I redrew last summer, and my friend in Toronto, he does all this interesting fabrication. So these discs, then we cut out of metal, we cut them out of aluminum. And these are going to be their wall hangings. I'm working on, there's legs you can attach to these. They become little coffee tables. Yeah. We want to do like an outdoor sort of little patio set with the geese, sort of, that's an idea.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So it just, you're getting your head into, this is all done by water jet. So all these little holes are cut out, fall out, right? So the first design I did, they went to lift it up and everything fell out because I wasn't thinking, because I don't have an imagination, I really don't. So we have to redesign all of that to make it work.
Huh.
Yeah.
And I think this is the last slide. I just wanted to give
yeah.
Winnie a voice. Yeah.
Yeah, I know Winnie. Yeah, so just for fun, I think last year I got this little wiener dog and design, we cut them out. So I think cut out maybe 10 or 12 of these, and I just painted them up, and then my friend Matt says, well, we can do some legs for you. So great. So we made tables out of these things, and I don't know, it's all about experimenting and pushing and having fun. But when you do that, the result is interesting because it suddenly triggers new opportunities when you do that, when you go beyond, just whatever. These things open up new vistas.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. So the venture out into different forms of furniture, is there any moments that the risk or the trial and error process, something that just didn't work out? Or?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did a chaise lounge, and it was this curved wood, one profile of wood, and so we connected them all together, right? And It looked really good. It just wouldn't fit. It
Yeah.
just, you know, it's just one shape that won't fit everyone. So we're just trying to figure how to do that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Very cool. Well, I'm going to turn it over to our audience to ask
Yeah.
some questions maybe and join our questions here. Is there any questions that you guys might have for Andrew in terms of his design work?
You commented about, or you said going through different designs and such like that, and I was struck by that one for the stamp. And I looked at that, and you said, you know, you go through all the stamps that are at the outlet. How many designs would you have gone through to finally land on that? And how did you know?
Lots.
Yeah.
Lots is the answer. Stamp design is a very complicated thing because it's money, right? The end result is actual tangible money, right? So it has to be, it goes through a whole series of different approvals. I did bring some slides to show you a creative process of designing a poster if you guys want to see that. But you know, there's so many needs and wants and desires from Canada Post or the Mint or whoever in those projects. For one example is I was asked to create a proposal design for Canada Post for the Christmas stamp. And that was, I think, 7 agencies in Canada were asked to do that. So I was thrilled for the, you know, to get the opportunity. And I went in one direction, pinning it. I don't normally do this, but I pinned it on one kind of mode. And I have to be very careful what I say because I can't really tell you about the final designs. But normally I don't do that, but I did. And they didn't like it. But they said one of the designs was kind of interesting direction. Can you build on that? So I built on that. And that was a 2-year approval process of 2 years. And that was like starting about 3 years ago. And then I can't even remember now, last spring or when was it? And my designs were approved. All right, so great. And I won out of the 3 agencies in Canada, me and 2 others. And so I went, well, that's great, exciting, you know? And they says, yeah, the Christmas stamp, the designs, they'll come out 2019.
Wow.
So the whole thing glued together would be like 5-6 years between design and the final piece. I think my mom says, well, I hope I'm alive to use them. Typical mummy. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Question. A couple slides back were these banners for this massive, really expensive building.
Yeah.
When you do work like that, you mentioned that it's going to be put onto desks and like all sorts of
Yeah.
things. Do you just trust that they're going to do a good job with placement and
Oh, no.
use your work well?
Oh, no. I call it the 1% rule. You know, you will carry the ball 99% of the way, and then you just pass it off to someone, and they'll drop it. They will drop it 100% of the time. 100%. It's the 1% rule. So you got to babysit it right to the.
I want to as a designer. I want to like take it all the way through.
You do. Well, you have to, because they'll just F it up every single time. And, you know, so, you know, how you do that is very difficult because of distance, you know, for Vancouver. But I really try and babysit them right through to the very final end, you know. Especially when you're doing very complicated things. Like, for example, we're doing all the artwork for the inside. And they said, well, we have a printer and we have a framer in Vancouver. I said, no, we're going to do it here in London. And I'm going to be at the printer. I'm going to make sure the prints are fine. And those are going to go to the framer. And I'm going to be at the framers. And I'm going to make sure those prints are fine until they load it up on a pallet. And I'm going to make sure that's packed correctly so they don't get busted, you know, between here and Vancouver. And then make sure I have an architect out there who's going to be there. They're going to unload it and they're going to hang it correctly. We have a placement exactly on every single wall in this building. So that's the length you got to do. Otherwise, you'll hand it off and it's going to get effed up every time. Trust me. Yeah.
This is a building, Andrew?
No, those are designs.
I sort of missed what, is it called the Derby Banner?
Yeah, Derby Manor. It's a very relaxed yet high-end sort of, not a retirement kind of community, but for like 55 plus, 60, you know, whatever, wealthy people, you know. And it's a beautiful setting. It's a beautiful building. Like, the design is stunning. And so they wanted something that's fresh and modern, you know, and in their marketing as well, you know. So this ties in with a marketing campaign, and so it stands out. It's very, very different than the typical things you'd see from whoever, Amica or all those other horrible places, you know. So it's very, it's very fresh. It's very different for that market. Yeah. Can I show you the process of a poster?
Absolutely, yeah, that's on the other set of slides.
I think that's always kind of fun.
Absolutely, yeah.
This was a season poster for the Grand, and I just picked on this. I was going to show some other stuff, but I just thought, well, you've seen some of the stuff for the Grand around here. So this is the end result, and with all the type and all the bits and pieces, even the type that's inside her sort of dress, all of that was given to me by the Grand, which was the largest pain in the ass to fit into the illustration, and it took more time to put that type in that dress than the actual illustration to do. So, they were talking about the season, and they're talking about the Thames River, the river. There was Joni Mitchell, the river, and all this. There's a lot of philosophical stuff that was kind of floating in that. So we'll just kind of flip through these things. So, this is what I do. I just sort of kind of play around with ideas, just this river idea, music. There's a lot of music in the year, this season, There's a scribble there for Joni Mitchell, but that was actually, I wanted that to be the season poster where the river's going through her hair and just something like that. I don't know, just little doodles. Yeah. I don't know, just little people, images, hands clapping. I don't know. Simple images, like Matisse during World War II was doing a painting of a vase of flowers, just the beauty of that during this horrific time in history. And I just love this image that could be just fresh. Or in the theater, in the seats, the river, well, someone's rowing through the, in these seats, right? Kind of, I don't know, and little drawing up, and I just thought, just that, I don't know, who knows what that is? Maybe it's me thinking, oh yeah, I can't think of anything. I don't know. Rowing, you're kind of in a cloud and you're going through the sky, or there's a moon, and the other one was sort of luggage, with all the stickers that were all the plays. That's kind of corny. So anyway. And whatever, a little dress, could be a person, could be something on the hanger, I don't know. But and there's that person again that you see in these, the little tree with hearts or hands, God knows what. Keep going. So then this image of this person, this woman kind of came back, and she's maybe a boat, or her dress is kind of sails, or her suitcase is water. That's another idea I have, this idea that she's looking forward, the idea of looking forward to a new season. I don't know. Susan Furley was leaving as well. There was an element of leaving and flight and going, so that this image was flowing here, and then another idea. I like this one, but it's just maybe not for this, or maybe I'll do it for something else. I don't know, but these are just ideas. And I think for me, only speaking about for me, I'd love to think and draw at the same time, because it's very important. It's the immediate thing, right? It's fast and it's quick, right?
How long is this process of thinking through the designs before you I imagine it's variable, but what would be a typical period of time?
2 minutes.
2 minutes?
No, I'm kidding. I don't know. I don't know. No, I mean, sometimes it's painful. It's really, sometimes it just doesn't come. It just doesn't. Anyway, we'll just kind of get through these. And there she is with I like the idea of the suitcase of water. I thought it was kind of, but that, so anyway, then you can start to see where this was starting to go. The idea of this paddle, which is, that's the thing that's going to propel you along. There was a canoe idea because of the Tom Thompson piece as well. I don't know. And the one, so I always like that. I'm going to use that for something else sometime. Anyway, another one. And there's, you can see where it's evolving. And these are actually very quickly done. And then that's where it was pretty close to the end. The next one, I like the idea that, before, one back, you can see, using the sextant, which is to do about time, and it's to do with where location and navigation, But that again was a bit deep for Susan, so went back to the paddle at the end. So there you go. That's how you do a season poster or a poster design.
That's remarkable.
Yeah.
Really remarkable.
Yeah. And then you have to argue over all the point size of the type.
Yeah.
Bigger, bigger, I mean,
So
smaller, smaller.
how much of the material that led up to that would have anybody seen but you? Would you have shown those drawings to creative designers, to the people that you consult in terms of the theater?
I do a lot of that. I'll show some variances of designs to the theater. I have a small group of confidants I work and I respect. I send to and get their input and opinion on, and
That's fantastic.
yeah.
So this is what you would have taken to the grant?
That's the final.
Sort of trying to follow
Yeah,
Josh's.
probably the previous design or the previous pencil.
Right.
That one or the other one, I'd say, that one there, I would say this is, there's an idea for the season poster, And what's interesting is, because I draw, is now I'm a bit of an anomaly because recently I was doing the designs for, I don't know, it was Princeton University or is the Mint or someone, they said, we just love looking at your drawings because we don't get drawings. And I went, well, okay, well, that's fine.
Yeah.
Love away,
You don't want to confuse them too much, all this stuff going on.
Well, yeah, it's just the fact that, it's crafted by a human being, I think is very, and everybody has to have an edge, I suppose,
And what does the translation process look like when you take the drawing and you go to the computer? Is it a much quicker process? Does that also involve all sorts of challenges?
It's a whole new layer of challenge. Everything has to be converted over, scanned and made vector, and then all the layering and all the type, and then you got to think about how it's going to be reproduced and printed, and then there's online applications, all the stuff for Princeton recently. We're doing these little animations so now we're animating the posters, right?
Yeah.
So they're moving about, so you have to think about that as well.
Oh yeah.
On
I'm
top of
thinking
it all.
The Beowulf poster is
Yeah.
one example where that animation comes in, which
Yeah.
is really stunning. Really
Yeah.
stunning.
Yeah.
I'd like to know, Andrew, you're from London and then you were away and came back. And
Yeah.
we're so happy to have you. And I'd like to know what are your impressions of London since you came back? Like, what's different? What were you surprised with?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a great question. When I left London, I was so depressed about the city. I was so depressed about downtown. I was so angry at the city, to be honest with you. I grew up when I was a kid going to The Simpsons down here, and it was a beautiful, it was fun. And obviously, North America has changed, not just London, Ontario, in terms of the downtown cores, the migration of the city out to shopping malls and so on. Fine. But the city just didn't care about downtown. And that's the core, that's the heart of a city, and I see, since I come back, finally, there's some movement of improvement, It's slow, but I see it. I think you guys see it, I hope. And, it's slowly getting nice again. But I'm seeing that everywhere. There's neighborhoods in Mexico City I went to 10 years ago. Recently, I seen them last year or the year before. Wow, that's really cleaned up. And it's finally people are starting to collectively respect old architecture. Now, the Kingsmill building is the biggest mystery in my mind. What a great building. Now it's what, 10 inches wide now? Just the front of it? I don't understand that. But, it would have been great. But maybe just because of whatever.
Yeah.
But I love to see that. And I think when you do that and more people live downtown, it's going to be a better place for everyone. I don't know.
Reminds me of the Jane Jacobs line, new ideas require old buildings.
Yeah. Oh, I love old buildings. I mean, this is a great space. Yeah, but it's important that you respect history. You just can't throw it out. I mean, I think in the 70s, everything was like shagged over, with orange and really, and they didn't want anything old again. But I think now it's kind of nice, Maybe we can thank the hipsters for that or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Further questions for Andrew?
When you had said before that in doing that coin, it turned out, it's about 6 years or so.
Yeah.
So postage stamps are certain, like, when say you're branding for a company, you get a sense of The long commitments in there.
Yeah, it's a juggling act. You know, you got to really juggle your time, how you spend your energy, how you, when you are busy, that's when you try and truffle pig more work. You can start to look for more work that's when you're busy, not when you're slow. You know, and that's the hardest thing because you know, when you finish your work, then hopefully you have some new things to come in to fill the next void. I'm blessed. I don't know what it is, but you know, the last 3-4 years, it's just been kind of a slight renaissance with my work and how it's all evolved. I can't explain. You know, there's the X element in there of where work comes from and clients and you know, and the economy changes. You know, it's good and it's bad. And oddly, I've done pretty good when it's bad. You know, I don't know why, but it seems to be the thing. Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to ask you is different countries, like you mentioned Americans or Norway or Japan, opposed artists.
Yeah.
I'm quite interested in, do countries have their own educational granting artists the ability to become artists? Or is it more a cultural thing, like when you mentioned it's that people just value art? You know, more like from the top down,
Yeah.
education, government.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Or is it really stemmed from just the people?
I think it's both. I think it's both. I think Mexico doesn't have a lot of money, but their art and their design, their culture is paramount. And you know, in the schools, it's very electric. It's very progressive. It's competitive. There's great work being done on every single level in that country, and it's not money driven. Their education is phenomenal. Like, you know, some of the design schools I've taught at, mind blowing. You know, I went to Puebla, Mexico. You know, known for the ceramics, right? And I was teaching at BUAP, which is I don't know what it is. Something I can't. But everyone calls it BUAP, and that's what I call it, BUAP, BUAP. And I was expecting just a simple school like Fanshawe. No, it's a beautiful, insanely designed school. It's modern. There's beautiful courtyards, you know, and with art. And then you have escalators for students to go to the second floors. Like, come on, you know, this is crazy. And beautiful, beautiful facilities. And then, you know, then you maybe see a school in the States that has like a quarter of that. But, you know, so you see that, you know, certain countries really, and Finland's the same way. I mean, they really value design, and because they know that good design is good business, is good money, you know. I mean, look at Marimekko, for example. I mean, that was started back in, the early 60s, I believe, and it's still vibrant today. The designs are still being used today. There's new ones, but the old ones are still being used, and that's good design. It's good business, right? Yeah, so I don't know. I think culture plays a big role in design, students.
For posters, and you'd mentioned this just a bit when we were talking before,
Yeah.
that Canada doesn't have the same poster design culture that other countries do. What should we be doing in Canada that would enhance that?
It's a mystery. It's a mystery. You know, about 5-6 years ago, I decided to bring an International Poster Biennial to Canada, you know, to have the first one here. All my friends said, great idea. And I could have support like that. I could put together a show of 300 of the world's best designers, posters, everything.
Amazing.
So I shopped it around. I went to all the galleries in Canada, and zero response. I went to Emily Carr's School of Art, met with the curator of the museum or the art gallery there, and he says, that's not part of our curriculum. I said, this is design, this is poster. It includes typography, illustration, photography, design, all in one piece. I could bring in stuff that would just, and I look at what they were showing, I said, come on, you know, this would be amazing.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why. And not like as though it's a mystery, because I would show them pictures of the
What it would
biennials,
look like, yeah.
and this is what a show looks like. Hello, you know,
Yeah.
these are amazing exhibitions, and I had no response from it, and I walked away from it. I said, I can't venture back there again. You know, I'm not going to waste any more calories on that one. very frustrating.
Take note, all galleries and people in here who could make something like that possible for
Well,
London.
okay, for example, Colorado has the International Poster Invitational exhibition. That's where they invite designers, and to be invited is very rare. And so, I've always been invited, thankfully. Where is it based? It's north of Denver in Fort Collins, a tiny little tiny college town.
Yep.
And they put this show on every 2 years, and it's international level in this, fairly smallish gallery space, but it's world class, and for Fort Collins, Colorado.
And it doesn't require a big space. It just requires that will.
It will, and the reaction when you walk into an exhibition of that caliber is amazing. Like every single poster has intellectual content.
Yeah.
It's designed for reaction, right? On every level. And there's different, you have cultural posters, you have social posters, you have educational, you have advertising. So to walk in and digest that 300 posters is it's a real true experience. When I was teaching in Victoria, I sat into a class where they were showing fine art and images of fine artists, and that class then walked over to my class, and I showed them posters, international posters, and the reaction of them looking at these was electric. It was amazing. Like dead before, see these poster works, and it was a remarkable thing to see, And so I get excited when you see that sort of
Absolutely.
Reaction, Yeah.
And that's something that you've had the chance to do, is be a workshop teacher and actually work through with students that process of carrying them through to make very mature and elegant designs.
Yeah.
That must be also just a phenomenal experience to give that back to a younger generation.
It's important. It's important. I think anyone who is a good designer or good at their craft, not a designer, but anyone who's good at their craft needs to teach it back and to share your knowledge and share what you know. Last fall I went to Caracas, Venezuela. I don't know if you've seen Venezuela right now. What a mess. Like it's a cultural mess. It's a dictatorship. Right now it's literally war in the streets, right? When I was there in the fall, it was so dangerous. In Caracas, there was a murder every 50 minutes in Caracas. Being a, gringo, I really stood out. So they really, really had to protect me. Everywhere I went, I could not go out at night. I could not do this. I had to be driven directly to the school. They wouldn't park in certain streets around the school.
Wow.
And, you're driving around the city. There's no one walking around because it's too dangerous. No one has any money. They turn the water off from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There's no water. There's no toilet paper. It's just an unbelievable thing. So right now there's a civil war going on, basically. And but there I was teaching this 2 classes of most extraordinarily grateful, creative students you've ever met in your life, and it was just great. It was great to do that, and and at the end, that they learned some new things, and that they're grateful for it. And they're going to bring that to other applications. So that's worth it.
Yeah, and a medium that would just sink really well in and have that ability to interact with that environment. Question back here?
I'm interested in how an artist makes a living.
Me too.
There are lots of people who are artistic and creative and do great things, and if you look at the average artist in Canada makes under $15,000 a year, maybe something like that, I think is fair to say.
Yeah.
And I think that'd be something really working at it full time.
Yeah.
What's the secret? Is just some advice you give people? Are you a business person / artist, or do you have an accountant who just loves you and does a great job for you, or like where does that business sense come from in you? Do you have any business sense? Does somebody else have it for you? I don't know. Like how does it work that an artist is able to feed himself?
That's a great question.
It's a good question. It's a great question. I'm still trying to figure that out myself. I think if I had to rely on art, just art, I would be, I'd be starving, I would think. I work in different levels, and I realized this many years ago, is that if you just put all your eggs in one basket, you're doomed. So I try and, I dip my toe into the advertising world. That's where the money is, and then there's the design world, which covers advertising and mostly design and branding. Then there's packaging. There's a whole different world there, and then there's fine art, which is, I'm learning that's a whole different world as well, So if you are a fine artist, it's a very difficult thing because you want to be true to yourself. It starts from day one in art schools where I think they really pollute your head. They really F up your brain and your thinking, because they are going to teach you what they are taught, and it's some of it's good, some of it is, this is art and that isn't art. So, and when you're young and you're impressionable, you're going to believe what is art and what isn't art, and that's a dangerous thing, because I know through my school at Beal and OCA, they really look down upon the applied arts in terms of commercial art and design, and fine art was a whole different thing, and which was unfortunate, but so it starts there. It starts at day one of what art is and what isn't, and then you have to develop your look, your style, whatever that is, and will it sell? I mean, clearly some things will never sell, clearly, right? And then you have who was that painter in the States? The painter of light did those horrible little yeah Thomas Kincaid, all right. Well, that's a great. And that's the other side of the spectrum, right? But his business was doing millions and millions and millions of dollars, and he was like the ultimate snake oil salesman. He would do all these trade conferences and get everyone to carry his work, and it was mind-blowing, his stuff, right? And you think, how does that sell? But it does, because there's this big, fat, plump udder ready to to buy into that, and so that's the other extreme. So I think, I always think of it, you have an artist, right, who wants to do, let's say he wants to do whatever kind of art, drawing or painting, or of big blocks of whatever, right? And this guy here, he wants to grow grass, right? He has every right to make art and grow grass, right? How is this guy going to make money growing grass, right? Or this guy going to make art? But I always think it's a bad analogy, but it's the same thing. It's how can you make money doing either one? So Andy Warhol is my hero, one of my heroes, in the sense that he was the hardest working illustrator in New York in the late 1950s. He was the highest paid illustrator at the time, making $70,000 a year in the 50s. Do the math on that. Like a house was about $10,000, right? He's making 70 grand. That's why he could afford to buy these big apartment buildings and was the factory studio. So he used that base to do his artwork, and that artwork was based on selling, and he knew how to tap into markets and buyers, and anyway. But you got to do that, Alex Katz, he still is a great painter, but he said, how am I going to compete against Warhol and Lichtenstein and these guys? He just thought, well, I'll just do like really clean big heads, that was his initial tact, to do these really large big heads in the gallery space to compete against the other pop artists. And it worked for him, but he had an angle from the very day one. He had this sort of, how am I going to compete against that? Versus doing his own thing.
Are these one-man shows though? Like the artist has to match as well, or is there an element of cooperative, a partner, somebody who's more interested in merchandising making the T-shirts and selling the books or whatever it is you're selling.
Yeah.
For you, like.
For me?
Well, for any artist, for you, yes.
I don't know.
Are you doing all the merchandising yourself, or is there somebody else who helps you with that?
I do all my marketing. I do all, basically, right? Yeah, I do most of it. Yeah, I've worked with galleries to sell my stuff, and some are better than others. Some don't sell. Some just want to put it on the wall and hope some people buy it, right? But good galleries should pre-sell a show and should be sold out before the actual art goes on the walls. I think they have a built-in list of buyers. They have treated it as a business. All depends on what kind of art you are doing. I mean, art is a big nebulous thing, and who's going to buy it,
I heard at one point in time too that you had called back your list of clients because you wanted to find that creative renewal, and in some ways it was actually the client-facing element that you needed to reinvigorate. Was that the case? How did that work?
Well, I think it was about 5 years ago in January, first week of January, I just looked at all my list, my clients, and I had a simple formula. Do these people energize me, or do these people, suck the life out of me, And so I made the list, and probably out of the list, there was a good 60% that were sucking the life out of me. I wasn't happy. So I literally, within a week, I phoned each one of those up. I said, thank you very much. I appreciated your business. I don't think it's a healthy thing for both of us to work together. So I let 60% of my clients go.
Wow.
Yeah. And then at that stage, I had to stand back and kind of rethink about how I'm going to tackle filling that 60% up again, right? That kind of dawned after me like 2 weeks after that, going, that was brilliant, Mr. Lewis. Kind of anti-marketing, right?
Yeah.
Anti-advertising myself.
Can I say something in response? And I'm just saying this because I know Andrew up close these past 2 years. I lived in 2 countries, and I've been through many schools and art galleries, and I'm an art enthusiast and artist myself. And you only see so many people like Andrew. He works tirelessly on his craft. Whatever he does, it's not that he has this God-given talent and random business luck. Not many people have this energy. I don't know where that energy comes from, but I only have seen so many people who have that type of energy. And he's one of those. You only find so many of them between us. I might be talented and have so many things. I have not had anything like him. There's a point in time to forget about drawing. I'm going to go to sleep. He doesn't do that. He's just one of those that keeps pushing and pushing. And I think that's a big part of the success, He's always busy with something.
There's a gentleman in the back.
I've known Andy for a very long time. They're incredibly talented. What you're understating is how hard you work at your business. You're creative, you got great ideas, you do great work, but you do your invoice, you do your hustle, you collect your money, you pay your taxes. It goes on, and the minute you stop, you're screwed. So it's an endless. Don't take a month off. Don't take 2 weeks off. It's like they say, you gotta hustle when you're busy. As soon as you stop being busy, you'll go, crap, I'm done. That insecurity never goes away when you do business and art. It's very difficult. And he is a great hustler, slash businessman. And marketer. Something, and gets a good press rep. He gets a good, I was in China with them. We got a 12-page writer for the Chinese applied arts.
Yeah.
All those posters and all that. It was amazing. You bring that back, fire it out, let other people see that, because you gotta keep your profile up there. And that is a hustle. And there's always somebody, like a hockey player, there's always a rookie wanting to take your place.
Yeah.
Especially in this day and age when everybody, I said you had your people that come to your place saying, oh, I can do that on my computer.
Yeah.
No, I do the damn thing.
Yeah. I think the thing is that there's the front of whatever you think, but I'm always full of self-doubt and confidence lags, and no matter what you think is I don't know. I wish there was a easier way of doing it. I don't know. It's hard. I work very, as he just said, I work very, very hard. And, there's where do you want to be on the level, down here, let's say, are the flyers that you get in from, you know, the penny saver or whatever you want to call that thing, right? The horrible little flyers down there. Or there's the New Yorker covers, right? For me, New Yorker cover is way up here. I'm not there. I love to do a New Yorker cover. I'm killed to do a New Yorker cover, but to get into that echelon is a whole different stratosphere that I'm not there yet. I want to do one, okay? But, you know, it magically doesn't show up and it doesn't appear. You really have to work your ass off to maintain just treading water. And now it's so hard, you know. There's so many media outlets and social media and and it's also very confusing too, because you post something, let's say on social media, and you get like 500 likes, right? And for example, there's a store in Victoria that sells Converse running shoes. It's the #1 selling store in North America, believe it or not. It sells these. So they put a new shoe out, and they'll get, you know, 600 likes. And the owner says, well, we sold 1 pair on Saturday. So there's a lot of smoke and mirrors now. You know, you can't believe exactly what you see. So I don't know. It's a tough business, and you have to work very hard. So lights are going off. That's it. The dance is done.
Maybe we'll have one last question here.
Oh, there's two last questions.
Oh, there's two. I didn't see the round. Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you've had any mentors over the years.
Just say again. What?
If you've had any mentors over the years, and what your peer group, you said you send work to your peers, what that makeup, is that all designers or is that art directors?
Well, I got friends who are mentors. Mentor is a big word. You know, people who you talk to and can give you good, clean advice, you know. Myself, I mean, I have some really great mentors who are friends as well. I'm fortunate to be friends with Milton Glaser in New York.
Wow.
And, you know, he's like the Yoda of design, you know. You know, I worked with David Hockney, and he was just a nut, but he said it to me many years ago, and he was on the Tate video. And he said that, you know, inspiration doesn't visit the lazy, and I think that's great. And because I know sometimes my daughter says, oh, I'm not inspired to do. I'm waiting to be inspired. No, you got to start working it. You don't wait for that inspiration to come, and that's how you forge ahead. You make a whole string of mistakes, and then you finally make a little breakthrough, and that little breakthrough gets a new breakthrough, and you just got to keep working, and it just, you know, it's like the Beatles. Think about the Beatles. They're a bunch of boneheads from Liverpool that weren't making it that great in Liverpool, so they went to Germany, and they played 12 hours a day. They played matinees all afternoon, then they start playing at night, then they play until like 1, and then go and sleep in this little flea-bitten back room, and, you know, and that's what they did for the longest time. Then they came back, and, you know, you got to do that.
What are you most proud of in your career this time?
Well, I'm proud that I almost went bankrupt a couple of times, so but I weathered those. So in terms of projects, it's the one I haven't done yet. You know, it's all about moving forward. I don't look back. You know, that's the most important thing. I mean, there's lots of no, I can't think of one. And I always try and put everything into every project. You know, try to at least. You know, I like the stamp from last year because it was fun, and I think it raised something like $1.8 million for kids. It was the only stamp that sold out last year, so that was good.
That's very cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you very much. Join me in welcoming and thanking Andrew for
We got to do it again.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.